Our first speaker is Campbell Pride. Campbell is president and CEO of XBRL US. Before joining XBRL US, where he initially started managing our technology, Campbell was executive director at Morgan Stanley, and before that he was a partner at KPMG, so he has a lot of experience on the accounting side, on the investment side, and on technology as well. Our second speaker today is Pranav Ghai, who is co-founder of CalcBench. Pranav is an analytics professional. He has built expert systems that interact with information to return actionable ideas. Pranav spent time at Morgan Stanley and at ITG. He's a contributing member to the Microsoft Technical Computing Customer Advisory Board, and we're very happy to have both of them with us today. Okay, so first I'm going to turn it over to Campbell Pride.
All right, thanks, Michelle. Today I'm just going to go through a couple of topics around XBRL, and I know there's a number of people that, we're aiming this webinar to help folks who are new for XBRL, but at the same time, trying to understand how they could get XBRL data and how they could use it as an investment professional. So we're going to just talk briefly about what data is available, where is the data, how do I get it, and how do I use it. So if we can cover these topics, I think this would just be very useful as guidance to help you be able to use this information. So I just want to give an overview of some of this data. Basically, everything in a financial statement filed with the SEC is pretty much available in an XBRL format. So this doesn't include every single financial statement, but it includes everything which would be included in a 10K or a 10Q, an S1, S4s if they're filed in XBRL. So there's 8K amendments. So there's a lot of information out there in an XBRL format, and probably about 70 million different data points at this stage that are available from the SEC in an XBRL format. And just to give you an example of some of the detail that is available, and this is just in very common areas where folks analysts have looked at the past, we're doing analysis, or if you have general interest in kind of this kind of information that's there. So for example, for pensions, the funded status of pensions, you can look at this stuff pretty easily. Pension benefit obligations, to understand what the total outstanding obligations are amongst all public companies who file. Things like what are the benefits paid, what are the employer contributions, what are the actual gains or loss, what are all the assumptions used in those calculations, what's pension expense for the period. And so having this data available, in traditional data sources, this information had been hard to get to, and obviously a lot of them are continuing to add this data. One of the advantages of having this data in XBRL is that it's freely available. You can redistribute it without any attribution or any fees associated with it, and you also have the ability to, this information is pretty much real time. When this pension note's filed, you've got it available to you. You don't have to wait. Obviously, for the bigger companies, that information is probably pretty quick, but for some of the smaller companies that maybe not be in the Dow or the S&P 500, this information is going to be available exactly the same time. So you have a wealth of financial data which is there, which you can use. The other thing about this data is, we talked about this, these are the totals of this data, but not only that, you also kind of get the breakdown. And for those who's familiar with the pension disclosure, every single number is reported. So you also get the details about the pension plans by either if it's a pension or if it's a pension plan or a post-retirement plan, or if it's a foreign or a domestic plan as well. So a lot of that information is there too. And then there's additional information. It's a multi-employer plan. Any disclosures required by the FASB, that data is available too. And then there's another example of things for taxes, tax reconciliation data, deferred tax reconciliation data, unremitted foreign tax earnings. And we're obviously hearing a lot about this at the moment with inversions. Companies with big unremitted foreign tax earnings have a pretty strong incentive to do an inversion. That data traditionally has not been collected by data aggregators. We can pretty much have a running total of what that that is with the XBRL data as well. If you're an investment banker or you're trying to sell inversion deals, they're very useful to identify those companies who would, who'd be interested in looking at that as well. So all this data is there, so it really expands the amount of analysis that you can do. In addition to obviously the traditional numerical data that you're going to see, a lot of the textual data is disclosed as well. So this makes it a lot easier to sometimes pull up footnotes that you may be interested in, or to search across every single fact that's ever been reported with the SEC and look for particular strings. So all of this is pretty easy as well. And as part of that, you can also then do analysis on strings. There's a lot of investment or some investment analysis done around what's the size of a disclosure, and then comparing how many words are in a disclosure, so you can kind of get an idea if it's a reorg or something, if it's a complicated deal or not. And obviously the company felt it needed to disclose more about it. It may play into investment decision as well. Then obviously there's a full history of data of all the previous filings. This can be useful for doing like restatement analysis. And I know Prana, who'll speak later, has done a little bit of work on this as well, and he might even show us what they're doing there. And then labels, all the labels associated with the values reported, so that's there too. So that's available for string analysis too, if you wanted to do that. The other data that's also in there is the calculation information. This is pretty useful. Typically, if you're looking at data, even if you're entering it into your models manually, sometimes you're not really sure maybe what items are included in the total you've got. XBRL actually, the way the SEC has implemented XBRL, they require companies, if they've defined calculations anywhere in their financial statements, they have to include those calculations in XBRL. So if there is something in the footnotes which say how something adds up, that information is available as well. So if you're looking at a number, you can quickly see what are the calculation components of it. And that's kind of good. You can do a lot of stuff on that as well to see how people report, what's included in income, what's not, and how you can compare across companies. Or the way that the facts are presented relative to each other, that's also encoded in XBRL as well. One of the main advantages, or some people call it complexity related to XBRL, is the ability to break down data across different dimensions. So basically, this is the ability to, any time a company disaggregates information in a financial statement, XBRL captures that in a way that allows you to be able to effectively get a drill down into those numbers. So examples of this may be individual debt, long-term debt. You may want to see the debt instruments that comprise that. That all that information is available in XBRL. Breakdown of business segments, legal entities, geographies. If you're breaking down revenue across those different dimensions, you can see that. Breakdown of equity method investments. If you want to see what are the equity method investments a company holds, what's the percentage stake in them, that kind of stuff. So that information is there as well. Basically, anything that's reported in the financial statements is available in a structured format. You get a lot more flexibility about how you can maneuver. You can take this data and reorganize it. So where is the XBRL data? We talk about it, where do I get it? So I just wanted to walk through that, just so you understand what's involved. How do I start today? So there's two types of data that's available, and it's like a traditional data world. There's kind of the actual data itself, and then there's the data definition. What is the data? So let's just talk about the data definition first. So data definition is referred to by the SEC, and people are using the XBRL standard it's called a taxonomy, and this is just basically a listing of what all the concepts are, and it allows you to identify what these items are, what's their name, and what's their description, and how they relate to other elements. So you can see here. This is a view of the data dictionary that's provided by FASB. This is available at the FASB website, and this is interactive. You can go and look at it, and then you can see, hey, this is all the data that potentially can be tagged and is available in an XBRL format. Let me see if I can just share my screen. This is on a. See if I can share my screen, and we just see. Sure. Okay, so you can, if you go to the FASB website, and these slides are going to be available, and I've just indicated that it's a link on here, so you can link to the taxonomy at FASB. You can see that, and then so you can go and have a look at that, and you can see what the elements are, and any of those elements that are available, you can look at those. So I think Michelle was just going to go in, and she's going to click on the link, and then she'll show you how you can see that. And so the slides are available. You'll have the link, and you can do it. I don't think we're going to have time to go through that. So we'll just go to the next slide. The other place that you can get the data from is from the other part of the data is the actual data itself. This is the actual facts, the information facts that are there. So to get this data, all this data is being reported with the SEC. And there's a number of different ways you can get it. So the first thing is the SEC makes available as an RSS feed. And you go to the SEC website, and I put the link on here. So if you want to get the slides, let know. Or then you can go on that link, and then it'll give you basically this is just basically an RSS feed. So as filings are filed with the SEC, they'll appear on this list. And you can click on them, and you can go and download them. But obviously, you can have a computer system look at that link too, and as they file with the SEC. That the computer system can pull those down as well and pull them into a database if that's what you want to do. So Michelle's just going to share the desktop, and then we'll just show you some of these things. Okay, let me do it here. I'm just going to share my desktop with you, and it will show you how this works. So here, for example, let's just go back. This is we talked about the SEC website, so we can. So this next page is you can see here is where is the XBRL data, and if you look at this is click on the RSS feed, you'll see that you have this blue box here. These files down below, these are all the XBRL files, and typically with one of these filings, this is the information that the SEC requires a company to file. So if you look at, if you open these are going to be in an XML format, and that's really, if you're trying to analyze that data, that's probably not like the best place to start, because you really need to be able to put in a tool which makes sense of this data. And so then what you'll find is a lot of people do is they'll take these files and put them into a database and make it queryable. So one of the things though, before you get this data, you've got to get those files, and there's a number of different ways you can get them. This is that same page, but I've just taken the end HTML off, and then you can see all the files that are available there. So then this basically includes the original HTML filing. This is on the SEC website, a zip file of all the filings, a text version of the filings, and they also have a what's name version, an Excel version on there as well. So let's just have a quick at that. So if you want to take this XBRL data and then just pull it straight down into an Excel spreadsheet, you can click on that link, and I've included a link here. This is just a randomly chosen company, and this is just pulling straight off the SEC website. And basically what the SEC does is when the filing comes in, they take the XBRL, they process it, and they make it available in an Excel format. And now, I wouldn't say this is the primary way that you want to try and get this data, but it is a mechanism to be able to see the information. The other way you can get this data is via FTP. So the SEC also make available all this information. So if you want to get previous filings, if you want to go back and download all the filings and put them into a database, the SEC has a whole FTP feed available for you, So you can go and pull all that information down from the SEC as well. Now we're talking lots of data, and if you're trying to look up like an individual company, I wouldn't recommend going and pulling down all this FTP data. But what you can do with this information is it gives you the ability to, if you wanted to build a database of it, you can do that. And let's just talk about what's involved with that, because it may sound daunting, but it's not actually as difficult as it sounds. So you can either get the data. If you're trying to do analysis on this data, you can go to the SEC website. They also have a link on there which allows you a viewer, which allows you to view the XBRL data. So you can do that, or you can get the data indirectly. Is just really have this information in-house, and there's a couple of things you can do. So you could either take all the data and process it yourself, or you can use a data intermediary. There's a number of data intermediaries who are set up in the last couple of years who are making XBRL data available. Let's just talk about, let's say I'm a hedge fund and I want to bring all this information in-house, or I'm a pension manager or a mutual fund, and I want to use all this data for analysis to supplement data that I've got already, or to maybe replace data that I'm purchasing. There's a couple of things you need. We'll just walk through these pretty quickly. The first one's an XBRL parser, and what this means is all it is a piece of software that basically can go and read these XBRL filings on the SEC website, pull that data and put it into a database, and then you can just query the data. Then you need a database to put it in, like for example Postgres, which is an open source database you can put it in, or Microsoft SQL Server, or Oracle, or a number of these different products, MySQL, a number of different database programs available to it. You don't want to use Access. Access is not, there's too much data for Access to handle. So you kind of want to use something which is a little bit more industrial strength, but at the same time that doesn't really have to cost very much at all with cloud computing and everything else. And then you need queries to pull the data from into the database. So this is, hey, give me all these companies which have reported revenues in the last year, or whatever it may be. So these databases, one of the things XBRL US has done as a consortium is to try and get this information and to get this information as cheap and free as possible. So to use the parser, there's an open source parser called ERL, and you can go to I'll put a link here, you can go to the ERL website, you can download the software. But ERL's also made a lot of the databases available, and the schema for these databases available, and you can get that too. And there's actually, you can download a fully loaded database from the ERL website, which will show you, basically include all the XBRL data. If you want to, you can pull that down and install it on your laptop if you wanted to, and query away to your heart's content. We XBRL US, we have a schema that we use for our internal database, which I'll show you in a minute, and that that schema is available at the link I've provided here, so you can take that. And this basically, if you take this, the schema allows you to basically you just run the script, and it'll effectively build the entire database for you. Then you'd use a program like ERL, and you can kick that off, and there's instructions, and it will just go to the SEC, pull all the data down, and populate the database for you, and then continue to populate it. Now, this is kind of a harder way of doing this. This does require a bit of work, so you just want to make sure that it's not, it's not outside the cost of a small hedge fund or a small mutual fund to do normalization of it. And there's different database structures that have been proposed as well. The database, that the XBRL US database, is specific for US GAAP reporting, but some of these other databases are more generic, so they can potentially take data from, they can take data that's being reported in XBRL all around the world. So they can take all the UK or Japan or wherever it is. And I've also included a link here. This is a link just to download a copy of the XBRL database, so you can download the whole entire database in a zip file and basically bring it up into your machine. It uses what's called a Postgres database. And then over the next couple of weeks, because our schemas out there, one of the things we're going to be doing is making available a number of the queries that we use to query this data, and make those available so folks can, if they want to do pretty simple queries on data, they can do that as well. Now, the other alternative, obviously, to doing all that is to sign up with a data provider. So small companies who have started up recently, and Pranav is going to talk about what they do in a minute. But there's a bunch of them, and CalcBeat, I haven't listed them all here. There's just a sample of them, and doing a lot of good stuff. You know, one of the other initiatives that we worked was on, and Wikipedia is automatically updating the financial data available on Wikipedia with a company called Innovesta. So they were providing that, so they can you can basically, if you go to Wikipedia, if you went to Viacom, you can see all that data that's associated with Viacom. That's all coming via XBRL. So we're kind of working on fully populating out Wikipedia with a lot of that data as well. And so then, you know, this information can be out there, and then it can be available. But the same things then can be used to populate internal sources within the company as well. So how do you use this data? So this is basically like a front end. We have it to our database, which allows you, just put a screenshot in here, so you can pull data on a given company. But one of the things you have with I talked about earlier, with being able to disaggregate data, if I pull up in this case, you can't really see it very well, but you know, if I pulled up, this is non-current liabilities, I can pull that up and I can see, hey, this is all our non-current liabilities. This not only shows non-current liabilities for the company, but the non-current liabilities for the subsidiaries of the company as well. So you can start to see a much bigger picture of, you know, what's the company composed of. Then we have another tool which we're going to be making available in the next couple of weeks, which just allows you to basically put an element in and pull that data. But this just kind of gives you the aggregate data for the company rather than giving you the broken down data. So there's lots of ways you can start to look in and pull up this data. And if you're interested, XBRL US is more than happy to help you get involved and start using this data. But one of the things we do have coming up in September is the XBRL US conference, and there's a whole day dedicated to, called the data forum, actually 2 days, dedicated to, you know, how can I get this XBRL data, how can I use it, how can I analyze it. So if you're interested in getting this data, it'd be well worth it, because then you should be able to walk away with that knowing exactly what you need to do in terms of consuming it and seeing what other folks are doing with this data as well. And there's some great graphics that we've put up. You can see these graphics. I've included the links in the presentation, but these ones allow you to see an aggregate view of the US economy. This one here, this pie chart. So you can drill down on concepts across all companies. If you go to data.xbrl.us, you can see this now if you're following along. The other one below it, this has basically got a whole lot, basically comparing a bunch of metrics related to tax. And a lot of this was just really looking at, you know, if I've got this much unremitted foreign tax earnings and this much retained earnings, you know, what position am I, you know, how can I liberate those unremitted foreign tax earnings that are sitting in foreign subsidiaries? You know, obviously the companies doing inversions, so this is kind of, you know, you look at this, you'll see a lot of the companies which have a lot of unremitted foreign tax earnings are more likely to be doing inversion. And here's just like a graphical view as well of, you know, the unremitted foreign tax earnings, just as an example. So what I'm going to do now is we'll hand it over to Pranav, who's just going to give a demo of what some of the stuff that CalcBeat is doing with this data and some of the things to do with it. So I'll hand it over to you.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Great, okay. So, I ran into an issue here. It looks like I can't, originally I had shared my screen, but for some reason it's not coming up. The tab seems to have disappeared. So, they don't have it.
Hey, Pranav.
Yep.
Hi, it's Michelle. You're going to have to share your screen again. Apologies, but we were trying to share the screen. It wasn't.
Okay. Let me see if I can do that. It's actually grayed out, Michelle. It's not letting me share. So there appears a technical issue. There we go. Hang on. It's coming. Can everyone hear me still, or am I gone?
Yes, we can hear you, Prana.
Okay.
We're not seeing your screen, though.
No, it's still...
Still loading up here.
Yeah, I got the circle going. I apologize. I don't know.
Yeah, so if everybody could just bear with us for a minute here. Oh,
Something happened.
something there, but not quite what we're looking for.
This keeps going on like this for another 3 seconds. I'm going to cancel it and restart it.
Yeah, Pranav, I was going to suggest it might be running on your computer already, in which case you'd want to close it and relaunch from the meeting.
There we go.
Got it?
Looks good, Prana. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, guys. So again, thanks for having me. I'm going to give you a quick demo of CalcBench, and again, I apologize for the technical difficulties. The way you simply use this is just to go to calcbench.com. It's the easiest way, and we have a number of different modules of the site at this point. So I'll take you very slowly through a couple of them. And some of you may have seen a lot of these before. So when we initially started the firm, we just started looking at the face financial statements, and we've slowly expanded that to include a normalized database, and we've gotten involved in looking at the footnotes and extracting information from those as well. So at this point, it's a fully blown platform to do some analysis with. So simply go to calcbench.com and pick a company. Just like a lot of the other vendors in the space, we have the full universe of XBRL filings. It's about 9,000 companies. So I'm just picking that I happen to like, and that's not advice. It's just a company I happen to like. Micron Technologies. And you go and you can just simply look across any of the face financial statements. Here we're looking at the income statement. You mouse over a label, you'll actually see the tag that's used. We string together 4 or 5 years for you. You can add a year if you want, like that. You click on the Show Previous button right there. You can go across any of these face financials. You can do, in our advanced versions of the product, we actually let our customers do things like highlight revised facts. So Campbell alluded to this earlier, but when you have a small revision, not a full-blown amended filing, you can actually, you can see the little R's, and we give you revision history as well. So you can see how Micron has revised certain numbers. You can also, we also label extensions for you. So if you look at the balance sheet here, you'll see that under liabilities, they have an equipment purchasing contract, and that's an extension labeled as non-FASB right there in the tooltip. You can chart items if you wish. And then, so when we started looking at all of these things, we realized the power of this allows you to, do things like screening, composites, and we decided to allow our customers to do some benchmarking as well. And the way we do that is you can actually click on the benchmark menu item right there, or you can actually compare to a peer group right here, and it'll take you and it'll drop you into a little view for the SIC group, 3674, semiconductors and related devices. And this is an interactive work environment where you can do things like sort. We give you 4 metrics to start. You can change periods of time across the top here with these radio buttons. I'm just going to keep it simple for now and stick to annual periods. But you can also explore different data items. If you wanted to look at instead of the 4 that we give you, these are all the data items supported. If you wanted to look at R&D expenses, for example, you could click on that, it'll add that. If I wanted an item from the cash flow statement, let's look at acquisitions and divestiture. And again, all of these things are sortable. So if you want to see who's expending the most on R&D, you can do that. We offer what we call full metric transparency. So when you double click on an item, you'll actually see the tag that's used. And it'll actually take you to related disclosures of R&D if you click here. I'm not going to do that for now because I'll show you another place we can go to do that. This is kind of interesting. So this is our definition of acquisitions and divestitures. This is how we calculate it. And that's what I mean by metric transparency. If you feel that there's a different way to calculate a particular item, you can do that. You don't have to use our definition. And the way you do that is simply you click on this button here. Actually, there's an interactive help that shows you. But if you click on the little arrow here, you'll actually insert a column, and then you can actually create your own formula. So if you had a metric that you wanted to calculate, let's say R&D to operating income, say OK, it's a %, and you can just give it a name. And it too is sortable. And you can do some Windsorization in there if you see some nonsensical numbers, this sort of thing. You can export the whole thing. Export it with the formulas. It'll drop it to an Excel spreadsheet. All of that. There are other things that we have as well, including all of our ratios, profitability ratios, liquidity ratios, things like day sales outstanding, if somebody wants to look at what those numbers look like. Some charting available with it as well. And again, full metric transparency. Here's our formula. If you disagree or have a preference for doing something else, by all means, go ahead and do so. Next place I'll take you is to our little footnotes query area. And it's the same principle here. You pick a peer group, and if I want to pick Micron again, I'll get to peer group, and I'm going to show you what we call the grid view of our disclosures. So here in a minute, it's a big peer group. You'll see a matrix where the companies are across the top, and in the rows you have the different disclosures. And if you see a little yes next to the disclosure, it means that it exists. A dash means it doesn't. So you get a quick bird's eye view of who's disclosing what. Now, it's a little hard to see in a big group like this, but nonetheless, you get the idea. It's a view of the disclosure set. And then if I wanted to pick a particular disclosure, I could simply do that here. Let's look at the inventory disclosure. So if you were to just click on an inventory disclosure, I want to find somebody interesting here. Broadcom would be interesting if they actually had one. But you could do it that way, or you could just simply go to the 70 inventory disclosures by disclosure type here, and it'll bring all of them up. And again, I should have probably picked something smaller, but you can see you have the disclosure set here. Finisar could be interesting. So here's Finisar's inventory disclosure. And now if you want to look at the raw materials inventory, we do something even more interesting. You can actually double click on a metric here or a number, and it'll give you you see the tag and the label used here. And we've actually normalized this data point to inventory raw materials. And you can get a history of that data item here. Clicking Get History. Right to your screen, it shows up. And you can chart it. So the idea here simply was, we wrote a little piece on this for the semiconductor industry recently, where somebody wants to get inventory data across an entire sector. Historically, they either have to, go to a traditional data vendor, and traditional data vendor may not even have some of this stuff. But the power of XBRL is clearly demonstrated here, because you can actually get this information very, very quickly. And if you wanted to then do it across the entire peer group, well, all of a sudden, you grab the tag for inventory here. And if I go back to my, I have a lot of screens open, I apologize. But if I go back to the benchmarker in here, woo, and I tap, and let's see here. Oops. I get my sector back. I can actually put the tag into this little box. And it will it'll populate the column. I got a little ahead of myself, but what it'll do is it'll actually give you the data item in the column over here when it eventually comes back. So that's the idea, and I'm sorry it's taking a little longer to show you that, but it'll come up in just a second. And you see things in this data that simply just aren't available elsewhere. There's a tag or concentration of risk by customers in here. It's very, very valuable, and oftentimes people dimensionalize this, and you can actually get things. You get things very, very clearly this way, so you can see, how many times a company has actually used this tag and how they've used it and where they've used it and for whom. So, for example, Smucker's actually discloses that Walmart is over 27% of their revenue, which is a big risk, and that's something that analysts are after all the time. And it's actually right there, and you can grab that, put it down. So this is just a high-level flavor of what we offer. And I had a few minutes, and if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to take them. We have some other tools for filers if you want to contact us specifically. There's a filer portal here that's available to you. And if you have any questions on that, just give us a call directly, and I'm happy to talk. That's it.
Great, Pranav, thank you very much. I don't believe we have any questions right now. So I think I'm just going to thank our speakers. We do have there was one thing that I wanted to mention, and while I'm doing that, if people do have questions, just a quick reminder that you can submit your questions by inputting the question itself into the moderated chat window on the bottom of the screen. So if you have any questions and want to send those in, you can do that right now. And I wanted to just mention the XBRL Data Forum that Campbell had referenced earlier. The Data Forum takes place September 15th through 17th. It starts with a cocktail reception, and then it's full days the 16th, and then a half day on the 17th. And the Data Forum takes place in Bellevue, Washington. And it's an intensive workshop that's designed specifically for analysts and IT managers and investment firms. So it's for technologists, but it's also for project and business managers. And the topics that will be covered at this event will be, education updates on tech spec, on how to develop XBRL databases and how to work with XBRL data. So it's going to cover a lot of the topics that Campbell touched on and that Pranav demonstrated, things like normalization, validation, and it's really designed to help people learn and interact with others and really, connect with people who are going to help you going forward. So please, take a look at the agenda. It's at xbrl.us/dataforum. And tomorrow morning, we will send everyone a link to the replay for this program. And we will be having, more programs going forward. So please watch your email. And thanks very much for joining us today.